What is going on, guys? This is Logan with West Desert Wheeler, and today is going to be a fun one checking out the super class MOA car that I was able to build and put together for the 2023 Arizona Summer Shootout. Now, this video would not even be possible without the crazy contribution from Zach S. So thank you very much, Zach. It was awesome to meet you when I was out crawling at Corona Del Mar. And thanks so much for sending a super kit my way. Unbelievable that you would do that. Super crazy. Then I need to send out more thanks and shout outs to my friends over at Reefs for getting me set up with two 1100 smart servos to move these big tires with these big weight hangers on here as well. And then a huge shout out to Sky RC in St. George. It's a hobby shop locally, and Cody had everything else I needed on the shelf, like the Traxxas shocks I used, as well as the Fusion motors. This car is running a Fusion Pro on each axle with the Reefs 1100 on each axle, as well as a 15 amp Castle BEC. These things are just incredible. Now, what's really cool about MOA cars is that you are able to control each motor individually from my controller. So I can do front wheel drive only, I can do rear wheel drive only. Now, in my smaller 1/10 scale MOA, that's a ton of fun. However, with the buggies that I like to drive, I've gotten pretty decent with driving rear steer, and I like the capabilities of rear steer. On the MOA cars in the classes for the Arizona Summer Shootout, rear steer is not allowed on 1/10 scale sized cars, 2.2 Pro. However, in super class, you can use rear steer. So as you've seen me use a ton already, I've been using rear steer, and you can do cool things like this where you can turn your rears and go rear wheel drive only and try and push the rear of the car around. Or you can do the opposite with the front end and do a front burn and pull the front of the car around. You can crab sideways and, all four-wheel steer to turn really tight, including changing my overdrive option on my remote. So there's a lot going on with this thing. This is the first time I've ever driven this car, truthfully, on the rocks. I've driven it around our Airbnb a little bit, and I've driven it through my room. I got this kit like 5 days before I was leaving for the Arizona Summer Shootout. And these are not real easy to just slap together. To get it like fine-tuned and everything bolted into where it will work correctly and everything's happy is actually really difficult to do. So I was able to get it done just in time, like literally down to the last minute. And fortunately, I was able to take it out to the Summer Shootout. Thanks to Nabil, he is sitting back there on the rock. He's the event organizer of the Summer Shootout, and with help from friends, of course, but put on a great event, and I really appreciate Nabil's, all of his work that he put into making this possible. Also, thanks to my cameraman, who is Thomas from Fabin 801. If you guys are looking for real cars, be sure to check out Fabin 801 for Rock Lizard chassis. And he's also a big-time 2.2 Pro fan. And he's into the RCs as well. And we had a whole group of us Utah boys come down for the Arizona Summer Shootout and represent. It was a great time hanging out in the Airbnb with everybody. Had an absolute blast on the rocks, and this was in early June of 2023. So finally getting around to this video, taking a look at the super run. Again, first time driving this out here on course, trying to dodge these cones. You'll notice I'm pretty slow, and this is because my controller set up for the rear steer actuation. This is the only car I have set up with rear steer on this controller, and I'm not used to how it controls the rear steer. Typically I drive a FlySky GT5 with a dial on the top, and with this Noble NB4, I have to use this controller so that I can control front and rear motors independently. And I ended up putting rear steer on a scroll wheel near my thumb. So I'm trying to control front and rear burn, overdrive, and be able to rear steer while I drive and walk around on the rock. So there's a lot going on with these supercars. And from what I've kind of heard from other people, the best description of these is these are very gentle giants. They are not incredibly strong or resilient to getting beat up. So you got to kind of take care of them. You got to make sure you don't get them bound up too much, which can be tricky to do with these great big tires that offer a ton of traction. But what's really cool is with these huge diameter tires, you can drive over amazing obstacles. And then we've got a ton of weight in these big brass slugs on this car that hang way down at the bottom of the wheels. So it keeps your center of gravity super low and planted. Now this car is an older deluxe kit. So this one has the deluxe weight hangers like I just described. And also on the super axles, they are a wider axle than your typical 1/10 22 Pro. And this one came with Delrin tubes. Now that's great for weight. Unfortunately for strength, it's about to end up kind of biting me in the ass here. I had to set my link mounts with set screws as well as my knuckles with set screws. And we're not gonna get a great view here. Unfortunately, Thomas was trying to help me out and spot me through here, but my knuckle ends up getting in a bind on the wheel and it rotates the whole C-hub around on my axle housing, and it stops my rear tires from being able to rotate. And it basically towed in my rear axle. So my rear tires were pointing at each other and I couldn't steer it right there. So unfortunately, the car broke on gate 10 of my first course out here with the Super. Very unfortunate. I was able to take it and back out that set screw and correct that knuckle and get back onto a second course. Now, at the Arizona Summer Shootout, I was able to set a super course myself, and this is the course that I had set. This first gate ended up way nastier than I had intended, but that's kind of how it goes sometimes. Without actually driving on the rocks, you can set gates that don't seem that difficult, but in reality, they are very difficult. This one goes up a big rock and then it dumps you into essentially a hole full of mixed rocks there where you're boulder hopping, and it can swallow up even these super sized cars. So unfortunately, I'm gonna spoil it here. We're gonna get ourselves into some trouble and end up rotating that rear knuckle again. It just had weakened it and it was no longer able to compete at this level through these level of obstacles. So unfortunately I had the car break, but it was my first real rock crawl ever with the car, and I had done decent in 22 Pro the day before, so it hadn't ruined my spirits by any means. And also, you know, for a shakedown run, I was pretty happy with how it went. So again, huge thank you to Zach, to Reefs, to Sky RC, to Thomas at Fabin 801, to all of my Utah buddies who came out and supported us out there on the rocks. It was a great time. I hope you guys enjoyed this look at my super class deluxe car. I am planning on getting aluminum axle tubes for it to really increase the strength. Unfortunately, that may be down the road a little bit, as those are not inexpensive, and this car is kind of it's very unique, as in you don't use them a ton. The way you treat them and whatnot, this isn't exactly a trail car, although I know Zach wants to see more footage with this thing because he sent it my way. So I will definitely work on that in the future. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you appreciate the content. We will see you in the next one. Keep the rubber side down.